where in my mind the world is going to change is we've actually stretched out hardware to a sufficient amount. Yes, we'll have humanoids and all of that. I believe that the world of automation is going to change with introduction of new hardware agnostic softwares. And that is where things will start changing drastically.
This is Out of the Box, your go-to logistics podcast with Abby, Pia, Margherita, and me, Lynn. So our guest today, Nivedita Ojha, CEO and co-founder of Kamet AI, has been recognized as one of the top 10 influential women leaders of 2024 for her work in AI and automation. Recently, Kamet was accepted into the prestigious NVIDIA Inception program, joining a selected group of startups transforming industries with innovative technology. Through its predictive analytics platform, Kamet is revolutionizing supply chain efficiency, helping businesses optimize automation and minimize risk while maximizing ROI. But let's ask Nivedita herself. So hi, and welcome to our podcast.
Thank you. And I look forward to this conversation with you and Margherita.
Likewise. So before we start off, how would you actually describe Kamet AI in a nutshell?
So to make it very simple, we just say industrial automation simplified. So we are a unifying platform that sits right on top of existing systems. So we are not here rip and replacing. And our goal here is to make it very simple in terms of a single touch point with an augmented experience, specifically for the head of operations and their supervisor. So it's a simple tool that is giving predictive analytics across machines, humans, and systems. And we can talk further more why we are working with all three in this space.
Yeah, I mean, this would be very interesting. And also, can you maybe kind of tell us a bit about the story, like how you actually got the idea to co-found Kamet AI, and why did you actually choose to focus on, automation? And also maybe can you highlight, where you focus on in the logistics space?
I've been involved in the robotics space in the last 3-4 years. At Autodesk, there's a lot of talk of robots. And then when I was at Fort Robotics, again, it was an accessory company for robotics. The exposure was even higher. And during that time, I had the opportunity of having conversations with 300 plus customers. And if you notice and if you see the robotics journey, it's been a little bit of up and down. There are lots of robotics companies, they're building the machines. And it's very capital intensive industry when you think about it, right? You're bringing in so many 20 robots or 40 robots or 100 robots. It is quite expensive. And then you already have existing machineries like the conveyors and forklifts. So one of the biggest challenge that I heard constantly is every machine, every system is very siloed. They all do their own job. However, when you think about the whole industrial world, especially manufacturing, warehousing, logistics, it's not like they're sitting and working on just one thing. It's not like the machine comes, it cleans, and it goes away, right? Like in case of street cleaning. It is much more. There's a goods that come or a raw material that comes that gets processed in some ways, that gets then packaged, and then it gets shipped out. So there's many layers. There's interdependency that we see between machines, humans, and system. And so we heard from customers that they were getting a little frustrated with the siloed solution, where even today, when there's an failure, there's an outage, there's a downtime, unplanned downtime, they're still using paper or pencil to really trace, or they have Excel sheets that they are tracing through, or sometimes they have few systems, but then they have to triage across multiple systems. So that is why it became really important for us to build this platform to make it much more easy. So what all our focus really is to make automation work in a very simple way, make it very easy to understand where the challenges are and immediately take action across those challenges. So that's how the company started. However, we already, myself and my co-founder, had similar background doing especially something like this in enterprise MDM space, mobile device management, where it was very fragmented. You had different classes of machines or devices coming. In addition, you had different laptops coming. And there were different user levels at each. There was the C-suite, then there's the VP suite, then there is the engineers, then there's the marketeers. Everybody had different requirements. So how do you manage machine systems and humans in that? So we'd already done it in a different space. So we saw that this was a new opportunity. Yes, there are some differences. You need to have knowledge of SCADA and Pareto and everything. However, in theory, it's similar to what we had done. And also by now, we had grown because both of us had been in the robotics space. We had understood a lot more what's going on. And so listening to this $48 billion problem, that's where we decided, okay, this is actually, it's not 48. It's from our understanding, based on data that we've seen in just North America, if we work backwards, because there's 11 or 8% revenue loss because of all of this in manufacturing warehousing. When we did a back calculation, we see it as $200 billion worth of loss. And it's underreported from our mind. So look at the opportunity, and nobody's here solving it.
Yeah, I mean, I love this perspective, right? On kind of, like you said, you talked to over 300 customers. So in average, that's almost one customer per day, and like kind of bringing in all of these demands into a solution. And also myself coming from a robotics company, although of course this podcast is not related to my daily job. That's a situation we face a lot of times. Of course, there are a lot of like manufacturers or like producers of just the hardware. And it's super hard to actually, like standardize this and actually bring it into a platform. So I think this is super cool, right? If Kamet can kind of also solve this problem and then get the data in.
So let me first talk about what kind of challenges we are focused on. Our focus really is the power of predictability. Everybody's chasing failures. We are predicting. What does that mean? In large scale environments, we are predicting things like, what if a power outages happen? That means it brings down all the machines over there, okay? Or the impact of batteries across fleets, okay? Based on the work that they do, the battery packs are extremely important. I hear from customers, oh, we have extra robots, so when the batteries go down, I'm swapping. But you're creating buffer, which is expensive. And in every leg, if you start creating buffer, or the impact of the environment. You have goods that are going to come in the trucking yard, but the truck's delayed because of the environment, right? And then to add to that, when the forklifts are retrieving this between the yard trucks and bringing them inside, if there is weather impact of wet weather because of snow or rain, that creates slippages. So it's like predicting how to avoid these scenarios way ahead so that we can continue the work and continue the efficiency and avoid any unplanned downtime. So things like, security and software incompatibility, that's going to bring down the whole warehouse. Blockages in a warehouse or shop floors that just bring mobile machines to complete standstill, causing safety issues. So it's really predicting systemic problems at a large scale and really bringing that across so that the operational team is aware and they know how to work around it before it really brings it down. So in terms of data, for us, we're not looking at live data because here we are modeling, we are using AI. So we need just data. It's old data and it's not live data. And we create models and we continuously keep on training the models based on the changes that we see. So we are working with a customer over here. It's all about product quality. And in this case, we are identifying patterns that impact the product quality. Using that information, we can predict, and let them know which suppliers are not providing the right kind of goods that need to in this product, right? So there are certain layers at which we are looking. So for us, it's really about data analysis based on multiple sources. So it's machines, systems, humans, and the environment that we look at.
It's very interesting to hear a little bit it sounds like the solution has a very broad scope. So I wanted to understand a little bit more from a customer perspective. How does it work? Is this an application that they install on site or like on the server of the different machinery that they have on site? Or how do you identify like the machinery that this is applicable to, and how does it work practically to install this service?
So this is the best question because this in everybody's mind, it's there's, if you look at forklifts, for example, if somebody wants some data from the forklifts, they're putting some boxes, another hardware, right? We're not about hardware. I don't care about another hardware. I just care about the data. So as long as I have access to the database of these tools, that's all I care about. And then I am sitting like a SaaS enterprise solution where you sign in. It could be in the cloud. In some cases, our customers wanted private cloud. And it is just a tool that is web enabled, and you can just sign in and you can start seeing the AI libraries, the dashboard of where the problems are occurring, and the impact of it. The biggest value for us is, one is predicting the failure, and then the dollar value impact, so that the VP of operations knows what is the ROI for them. So it is just a web tool, to be honest, very simple web tool. And so you can sign into it and you just start seeing it like any SaaS platform. So it's very simply designed. It's very unique from the standard enterprise products. I mean, when I say not enterprise, I should say it's happening in the enterprise world, in the industrial application world. So there is no hardware. It's just a pure software solution where we just need access to the databases. And then we are just running analysis. So you can see our analysis on the web by signing into our portal. That's it.
And then one follow-up question there, because so your kind of solution starts with the, I would say, like you said, enterprise solution, right? So all the data has been collected. But then I would say the customers you're working with are rather mature regarding their digital journey, right? Because this means they already collect the data.
They have some way of data. Yes. Actually, if you're talking about maturity, any customer that has any tool, even they have a WMS or a MES, they have somewhere they have their, most of these tools are a system of record. In our case, I don't need to be a system of record. I'm not storing any data. I'm only retrieving some of this data. It's not even all. It's only based on a certain formulation that we have. We bring on some of this data, we analyze it, and that's it. We don't even keep it. For us, it's the analysis and creating the AI models based off of it. So for us, it's only using the data for analysis.
And maybe like I'm a bit curious, do you keep different models for different types of machinery, or like are you able to generalize?
We are generalizing. The data is, of course, a customer's proprietary data. So that's the way we use it. But eventually, the models are generalized. Yes.
So it's possible to, for instance, like if you have data on, okay, so it's made for per customer site. So you collect, I don't know, the data from the WMS and connected to INSRS, connected to conveyors, connected to other like types of automated cleaner. And you're able to basically take the data, make an AI model that generalizes and predicts when each of them will shut down.
So let's not talk about just shutting down. It's much more specific. So let's say we will have all the data, and we'll put some AI rules to see. So let's say if some of these machines at certain intervals are just going offline, and then you don't know the reason why it's going offline. So we will figure out, and let's assume the reason they go offline is because there's a software compatibility issue, or there is a configuration issue. So these are the various levels that we look at. And then based on those various levels of issues, we create the models. And so we are noticing certain patterns, and that AI model then helps you utilize that pattern to give you a recommendation, like we see on so and so time or within the next 2 hours that there's some of these machines will go offline, or the fleet will go offline, and we'll give you the recommendation what to do. And it could be, maybe it's a software update, maybe it's some security glitch, maybe there was a configuration changes and that was not implemented. Especially in manufacturing, you see a lot of setup changes, tooling happening. So wherever there's human involved, we say it's automated environment. Actually, it is not automated. The human still configures, right? And that's where the errors start. So it's really predicting those and then giving you the recommendation, or, like use this or the weather pattern has completely changed, and the forklifts now, when they go out to retrieve, they would have to draw, when we'll give the prediction that the weather pattern has changed, so you have to be careful with the forklifts. That means also we're also recommending a speed at which they'll be working and an optimal weight at which they will be retrieving. So those models are standard models.
So I would imagine that when a customer gets onboarded, there is like a learning period. So like where you need to basically, I don't know, teach the AI why a system isn't working or is behaving in a certain way. So I would imagine that like the system stops once and we figure out, okay, it's because of a software update that hasn't been done. So does it work like this, that there is like a learning period already, or is there basically some logic already included?
There is a learning period. So with example, for one customer where there's a product quality we are working on, remember, every facility or every customer has some different nuances. Let me break it up into two pieces. If we want to just collect and show where we are predicting certain things, some things we can do straight away, right on, because there are some basic standard models that we have. Okay. Once we start getting the data, we can immediately showcase some of the things like the weather impact or the software impact or the safety impact, some of them. However, there are some that will need, I would say, a little bit of working with the customer's data, because when it's a product quality, it is very specific to that product quality. Also, the way they have like I can say based on environmental impact, what to do with weights or pressure, tire pressure, and things like that. However, if the goods or the facility is a retail or doing a CPG or it's doing automotive, right? Components, then it's slightly nuances are there, which we are also learning. Yeah. So in theory, it will seem that they're all same, but reality is not, because also the way they structure the facilities, and then the mapping is a big part of it also, and how the movement happens of the machines and the boxes, or even the way the goods are being produced. So sometimes, whether it's a manufacturing, whether it's a warehouse, you'll have places where just products are being dumped. That creates unnecessary blockage. So there is some environmental impact. So some things are standard. However, some things will need a little customization.
That makes sense, since also, every customer is a bit different, and every facility is never exactly the same as another. How do you deal with the data quality? I always hear that WMS data, for instance, is most of the time very bad. So how do you deal with these type of issues?
Okay, so this is actually a perfect question for my CTO more than me. So I will try to answer it. In terms of data quality as such, of course, there's a time period that we're looking for a data, and we're making an assumption that the time period also gives us enough volume to make that assumption. The second thing that we are doing is we don't ingest everything and anything. We have created our own first algorithm, and we are really only extracting what we need. So we don't just take a data dump. So that way we are trying to make sure that we are getting only the data, the nature of the data that we need. So we create layers and taggings for those data so that it's only the valid data that we want. And of course, once we get the data, we do evaluate and see when we run regressions, what is coming out. And based on that, I know my CTO can make a good assessment if this meets the needs that we're looking for. And he comes with tremendous amount of background in this space. So he has a very good understanding. However, we are pretty aware of data sanitization is a big thing for us. So that's why the way we've designed it, it's only the selected data. We are not ingesting everything and anything.
Okay, yeah, that clarifies it. And maybe let's go on maybe a higher level and speak about, let's cover AI in supply chain and logistics. But maybe a little bit of a provocation, but would you be able to offer the Kamet AI service without AI? Why is there AI in it?
Could we offer it? Absolutely, we could offer it without it. So we have 4 layers. In quality or in root cause analysis, or we say FMEA. So equivalent to that, in failure analysis, we have created what we call discover, assess, act, and track. So that's our 4-pronged program. So discover is discovering or predicting where the problem is going to occur, which is going to cause failure. Assess for us is assessing the impact of that. So let's say if there's an outage going to happen due to machines going offline, and they're offline and you're triaging and you don't know why the whole fleet goes offline. It costs you a day, so the impact of that, right? Because these are very expensive machinery, and then if you take $5,000 a minute or an hour, just calculate that, right? So that's your assessment of the impact. So now we have act and track. So I could just give you discover and assess, but the whole point is you want to assess the problem and then immediately take action so that you do not have such a big loss or an impact. So the AI model is the act. So yes, can I give you, if you don't want to take action, of course you can still do the discovery and assess. So we act, but ideally we feel if there is no value in that discovery, if you cannot act on it and minimize the cost of this big failure, you want a positive ROI. And then it's not just about acting, we track it in the sense we are verifying, was it properly implemented? Are you getting the ROI? So for us, the whole goal here is the VP of operation gets tasked with spending money on automation. They're given this budget. But when they go for the next round, the question asked is, what's your ROI? Did you get the value? Why should I spend more? So this tool actually is being able to give that VP of operation insights into where the challenges are and the ROI impact on it so that they can make automation work in a much better way. And why is that important? Because, if labor shortage is going to happen and we're going to talk about automation, they need to justify that.
Yeah. And then about the track part of this assessment and this process, like, as you said, it's more or less like no real-time data, but what do you recommend your customers? Is it like, okay, after we kind of act with our algorithms and so on, is it like something that data will be sent every month or like every 2 or 3 months? Is there anything, as a like rule of thumb?
No, there's no rule of thumb at this point. It's a little too early. However, so our goal is we minimize these incidences, right? We're constantly training the models. So we're tweaking it. So let's say if we saw that there is software incompatibility across the board, let's say we caught it 15 days before, we think it's going to happen. Now, based on our tracking and constant evaluation, now we can also look at it and warn you 2 months ago, okay? Versus sitting over there just when it's 15 days because, software got updated, then another software's version got changed and something else happened, right? So our goal is to give you enough time to act on it so that we're minimizing the failures. So in fact, we also have a scoring rate. So when I give you something which I see within 24 hours or 48 hours going to happen, then it's a red light. You've got to fix it right now because you're not, otherwise it's going to bring the house down. Something like this, where I know you have 2 months, you have a breathing time, we're giving you an amber light, but we're constantly reminding you, though it's amber, you don't want to leave it till 72 hours when things are going to break down. So that's the improvement that you will start seeing with the track process.
You know a lot about AI. You've been spending time looking at real applications out there. So I'm a little bit curious as well. What do you think are the high potential use cases within logistics if you take out like what you do at Kamet AI?
So, I want to take away the AI piece. I think it's just an enabler and the technology. I will tell you more of a challenge that is there in the world of logistics and manufacturing. There is a need for a lot of machinery, right, in this space. And so we're bringing a lot of automation and lots of hardware. And so far, the efficiencies that we have seen tends to be all very hardware driven. We are putting one box on another box, And either it's for data collection, either it's to manage security, or either it's to provide some safety. So the point I'm trying to say is that we've and will continue innovating on the hardware side. And within the hardware side, now we've also started putting all kinds of AI for configurations of these machineries. We are doing AI for vision detection. We are doing AI, mainly vision of variety using generative AI and LLMs. But where, in my mind, the world is going to change is we've actually stretched out hardware to a sufficient amount. Yes, we'll have humanoids and all of that. I believe that the world of automation is going to change with introduction of new hardware agnostic softwares. And that is where things will start changing drastically. And what I mean by that is there's enough data coming out of these systems, and it is about finding out, and it could be a niche use cases, just improving product quality. And you have put vision system. However, you may want to really start looking at the collaboration of a vision system with a human who's going to be actually configuring that machine, right? Because what has been happening is keep on saying machines are doing the work or robots are doing the work. The first line of contact or connection is still a human that's configuring that machine. There's a certain level at which we have designed those machinery. However, that machinery or that robot needs to reach its full potential in the environment it is brought into. And for that, there's a constant learning and updating and tweaking those configurations. And so you're going to start seeing more collaboration and AI happening over there. And so in my opinion, it's this software based solutions that are going to start coming in, that are going to bring in more AI models, which is going to be hardware agnostic. What I mean by that is I should be able to access the data from various systems and hardware to create these very specific AI models for whether it's configuration, whether it's improvement of quality, or there are areas, where you want to just develop controlled environment to do testing. So even for those, right, today, those controlled environment and labs, we don't have AI. So kind of bringing those kind of tools available in the space is going to be the new direction. That's in my opinion. And of course, we've been talking about lights out, right? So the moment you talk about lights out, that means you need to have more software enabled solutions. Yeah. Because if you're expecting the whole facility to work on its own 24/7, and you're going to have 6 people running it, then they're not going to run every machine. So they have to have controls, they have to have software enabled tools to really make this happen. So that's the way I see it, in terms of it's more about making it very AI based on a various levels of very, what I would call as vertical specific or specialized portions of the manufacturing warehouse, where we'll start seeing more of the AI coming.
This is, I think, a very interesting perspective as well. I also believe that we will see, especially, I come from the warehousing automation space, and I think customers are more and more educated on the hardware that they purchased, and now they're looking into seeing how they can get the most out of what they already have, which has also been a topic. If you think about maybe an area of maybe slowed down investments. So getting the most out of what you already have. I think there are many opportunities from a software perspective to achieve that.
Yes, and another thing I will tell you, Margherita, this is, in one of the early questions you both had asked me, why this problem and why now and why us. So this stems back from the early days of, when mobile devices came, very fragmented, so many OSs, so many different screen sizes. Anybody who was trying to make applications, it was a challenge, because you had to go to every operator, get approval, whether it's a Deutsche Telekom or whether it's France Telecom or AT&T. It was one nightmare. It was siloed. And then Apple comes, and then Android comes and disrupts the whole thing. And now you don't even have that problem, right? Point being that everybody who starts in the hardware world, they get into this walled garden approach. And they believe that's the way they're going to make money in this wall garden approach. The point is, at certain point, that has to break, and that will break. Even in the robotic space, we will see that. And we are seeing ROS coming in, right? Which is not an OS, it's a library. And then you have other companies like VM, who we partner with, who are making it much more easier for you to build robots now, because it's that, fluid software stack. That's the point. That it's not saying that the hardware is not important. It's absolutely important. I mean, I could not make applications if I did not have a Mac or a phone. It's the same thing, right? However, you can make it work even much better with with enhancing, with more applications, if you just open it up. And it is actually helpful also for their OEM vendors, because when you give the developers the ability to build on top, they're actually helping you generate more revenue. I think they don't think of it. They think about this, there are robotics vendors that are doing this RAS model, which makes sense because CapEx is very high. However, then they're also having this additional service models where the service cost per robot is $1,200. You could generate more if you were opening up the ecosystem with the ability to create more applications which are fine tuning what you're doing. And you could actually leverage that and generate more revenue. However, we still see this closed mentality, this wall garden mentality in the hardware space. So that is why I believe that we need to kind of open that up and leverage that. And I think, in my opinion, even on the AI front, it will give the machines a better ability to improve, whether using their safety sensors or their camera sensors, all of their sensors that expensive sensors they're putting into these machineries, in these robots, it will give them more ability to kind of leverage more value out of that.
And then, already talking about, okay, you see that the industry might get more agnostic and kind of more open, I guess. But like also for
I'd like to see that.
or hopefully not wishful thinking. But like, what are like kind of the big next steps for you as a company? Because you already talked about like partners like VM and so on, which might, help you in this space. Is there anything else, which you see for like 25, for example, where you say, okay, this is where we're going to have a big development? Or is there any kind of maybe use case, which is repeating over your customer base, which you might productize more?
We have a couple of them. Yes, we have a few use cases, but I don't want to share them because we're still in the customer validation mode. So I would, stay away from that for now. But you will see, we'll be writing about it on our website. I mean, from a longer standpoint, we want to be, this is what we say, we want to be the Palantir in the industrial automation space. What that means is we also want to be building AI policies and AI libraries specifically to help simplify. So if you bring any new tool, it should not be so difficult for somebody to include that new tool with the existing other tools. And so if you wanted to start it, you want to make maximum value out of it, it's simply connecting with us, and through our dashboard, we can start helping with predictability so that that tool also runs much better and faster, and making it less complex for the others. So that's really our goal, to be this, AI policy engine or AI policy across, the industrial automations. And right now it's focused on warehouse and manufacturing. I'm hoping also in a couple of years we expand it to other spaces and really focus on building this AI policy, which then makes it much more easy to predict failures and minimize the impact of failures.
That's definitely a vision, I would say. So really nice to hear. And maybe just like a last question, and also in a bit of a different direction, not too related to your software solution. Like also as a female founder, what do you think? What are any kind of like advices you would give any other kind of females who aspire to be a founder?
First of all, as a female, when I used to vision about this, there were some colleagues of mine in some previous companies who thought I have very limited knowledge of any of this. So first of all, as a female, you're always put into this space that you have limited knowledge. You don't know anything. So what I would tell all the women over there, we women have a very good thing called intuition. Stick with it. If you have an intuition, go for it. Because what I just said, I had seen these trends before in various spaces, and yeah, things are not going to be exactly copy paste, but I have seen these trends repeat itself. And that's why when we came into robotics, my co-founder and I were like, we've seen this before. This is the third time we've seen these things. Yeah. So we had intuition, we went for it. That's number one. Number two, in my mind, it's super, super important to have a good co-founder and even a couple of others who support you, because you do want a cohort of like-minded advisors as well as team members so that you can brainstorm, you can really figure out where things are not going wrong. You will not have answers to everything as a female, and it's perfectly fine. And that's why you need this community for yourself. Okay. And in my mind, I've done a solo company before. I feel having a solid, strong co founder is extremely important. It's almost like it's an amazing debate, and it's not about ego. It's not about who's right or wrong. It is getting the company right. That is the goal. So that's why having a right co founder is extremely critical. The other piece of it is you also want to make sure that as you get feedback, you're pivoting. And when I mean pivots, these are not large pivots. It's not like today I said I'm going to be in industrial space AI, and then tomorrow I switch into going to enterprise software. I'm not talking about those drastic pivots. You're constantly hearing, you're getting insights and information. Listen to it and see, clarify it. And sometimes the pivot could be in the messaging. Sometimes the pivot could be in the way you're designing the product. Sometimes the pivot could be the use case where I'm seeing there is, a lot more value, So just think through, because as opportunities come, you want to think through. But just because an opportunity came, don't get swayed completely. See how it's valuable to you. For example, we're talking about a company right now that we are talking to. My co-founder and myself, we talked about it. My co-founder clearly said, I think that a company may not be the ideal customer that we are looking for. Yes, because probably they're looking for a monitoring tool. I'm not a monitoring tool. I don't monitor. I don't do asset management. So maybe if they see the value in what we're doing today, and if that's what is important, then great, they are our customer. If not, they're not a customer. Move on. So it's very important to even think through these kind of things and make decisions fast. And of course, the most important thing for women farmers: money, money, money. The top three things. Without money, we cannot progress. So we need funding. That's the reality. And there needs to be, if somebody says, somebody graduating from MIT, Harvard, who doesn't look like me, is not colored, is not woman, and is funded for potential, I can tell you I have potential too. So every woman has a potential. So please fund every woman with potential.
That's a great summary, right? So nothing to add here. So thank you so much for being on this podcast, and really excited and, speaking to you like end of this year or next year, and to see that you hopefully emerge to the Palantir of the automation industry. Thank you so much.
I hope so too. Yes. And I hope it gets us more money. Yeah. Funding is really important when you're doing your company. So yeah.
I can imagine.
Yeah.